I'm about to show you something that I've only showed twice before, and both times was in Million Dollar Masterminds, and it is how to show up at the top of ChatGPT and dominate your competitors in search among other AI platforms too. What's important to understand is that AI is just a machine, and machines run on algorithms. So that means that once you understand how algorithms work, you can get them to work in your favor. So let's start with the proof, right? So here's an example of a retail client. I want to show you examples of service-based clients and retail clients because a lot of people think that it's one or the other, that the AI is showing just one of these results, but maybe you can't get retail projects to show up, but you can. So I'm going to start with that. So here's an example of a client that sells a health and beauty soap, and they show up in the AI results, but also in the citations. And we can show this in different versions of ChatGPT and different types of queries too, and also showing the products and images in the search as well. And you can also show up in AI overview. So what's cool about this is the client shows up multiple times. It shows up in the AI overview as the citations, and then also number one in the organic traditional results. So the way that you show up higher in ChatGPT is through these three pillars of AI. So the first one is how good or bad your website is built, because you have to have a website to feed the content to AI. And then number two is good content. How good or bad is your content strategy? And number three is credibility. Do other people talk about your brand and link to your website? So the basics on site structure are really simple. It's, does your website load quickly? Is your website mobile friendly? Is it easy to navigate? Usually the simpler your website, the better, because if we add on too many things, it starts to create resistance and friction and interruptions and distractions. So start with simple things like page speed. I like a tool called gtmetrics.com. I like this better than Page Speed Insights, Google's Page Speed Insights, because Google's Page Speed Insights is really broad and fluffy. It's like there's a thing wrong, but it doesn't tell you how good or how bad, like how wrong it is, and it doesn't tell you how to fix it. GTmetrix will tell you very specifically where the problem is, how significant it is, and how to fix it. Then we also want to look at content. AI rewards unique content. Well, that's obvious. But where most people fail is the type of content they write. They focus on quantity instead of quality, and it's totally a quality game because we have some clients who will write maybe 4 to 10 times per month that just crush the competition that's blogging, 100 times a month. Now, the main difference is buyer intent. So instead of writing for the sake of writing, you want to write to focus on attracting a pre-qualified lead. So there's tools you can use to identify what the buyer intent is. So here's a couple examples. We'll start with free and cheap and get to, paid and, more in depth. So SpyFu, you can go to spyfu.com, and I just gave a random example of Life Coach, and it'll tell you what people are already asking and searching on search engines and AI about whatever it is that you're trying to monetize. Answer the Public is another popular one. My favorite, though, is Also Asked. Also Asked is like Answer the Public, but it goes a lot deeper. And I have these two arrows here because maybe you serve an audience in a different country or that speaks a different language other than English. You can actually search by location and language to see what people are asking in those areas or those languages. Now, once you jump in here, here's also or Answer the Public. Then you want to look for what people are already asking. So in this case, you can look for strengths or weaknesses in how people perceive your product. So you can look for the things that they're saying, is this amazing, or I love this product, or how to do more about this. And then from there, you can either lean into those features or make FAQs about it or answer the questions, or you may even find opportunities for modifying your product based on the feedback of what people are asking or based on poaching from the competition. You can see what people like about your competitors or other similar products and figure out how to leverage that and talk about that more to get in front of the buyer demand, or maybe you have an opportunity for product enhancement. So there's a lot of cool opportunity there. Now we're going to insert a little meme joke here. Once I became an entrepreneur, I finally understood the scene in Star Wars where Yoda gets so tired of answering Luke's questions that he just dies. Now, why that's relevant is because those redundant questions are where the money is. You probably take for granted how much of an authority you are, how much of a knowledge expert you are and what you offer. And there are people that desperately want to close the gap between where they are and where you are. And so those things that you have to answer over and over and over are a great opportunity to become topics that you can monetize. So when we look at these tools, this is an example of typing in Life Coach on Answer the Public, and it'll bring up the who, what, when, where, and why of Life Coach. And when I talk about buyer intent, you want to look for things primarily like financial commitments and time commitments. When people are asking questions about financial commitments and time commitments, that implies they're further down the journey on the buying process, which compresses the time to convert them to a customer. So how much does it cost to hire a life coach, right? So you can talk about the pros and cons of life coaches. You can talk about the pricing structures that are different between you and your competitors. One of the best things that I've ever done is just be super transparent in the world of SEO. So all the things that other people are afraid to talk about are things that I talk about often. I often talk about why SEO is slow, but I explain why. The other people say it's slow, but they don't explain why. I talk about the pricing. I talk about why good SEO is expensive and why cheap SEO is not effective. So lean into those things because those are the things that people want to know. And so if you answer it, then they begin to trust you more than their competitors, which makes them more likely to buy. Site credibility. When other people talk about you or link to you, that's kind of a big deal, right? And so there's examples of links and citations. The main difference between links and citations are links is a hyperlink from one website to yours. A citation is an unlinked mention. So they talk about you or your product, but they don't link to your website. So they still have value though. So here's some examples. You can do media features, interviews, podcasts, articles, videos, press releases. Now, if you do press releases, don't do them the old school SEO way. Do them only if they can syndicate to Google News at a minimum, because there's lots of websites out there that'll gladly take your money that don't submit to any authoritative outlet. They just make a blog post on their website is really what they're doing. So make sure at a minimum it goes to Google News as a distribution outlet. All right, we're going to take a poll, drop in the comments. What do you think drives the most traffic? If we were to summarize the majority of the traffic in the world to these 5 buckets, there's a couple in between like email and things like that. But if we were to say all the traffic falls into these 5 categories, which one do you think drives the most traffic? Number 1, paid ads on social media. 2, paid ads on Google or search engines. 3, organic social media. 4, organic Google results. Or 5, ChatGPT and AI. What's fascinating about this to me is not which one gets the most traffic, but by the margin, because it is non-paid search engine traffic and it's by a lot. So what's cool about this is if you look at this statistic, and they update this kind of regularly if you want to go look at that source site, is the way that I look at this is like, okay, cool. If you're doing well on paid ads, you're doing well on social media, keep doing that. But look at how much opportunity is being left on the table with search. But Damon, I didn't see ChatGPT on that list, right? We talked about ChatGPT here, but it wasn't here. That is because this is when I be a friend that gives a reality check instead of supporting delusions. Bing gets more search volume than ChatGPT. ChatGPT is right here, the green. Not only does Bing get more search volume than ChatGPT, but DuckDuckGo does. And so that's not to say that ChatGPT hasn't had a great massive adoption, and it's not to say it's not going to continue to increase. You know, if I had a crystal ball, I'd say it'll even out 50-50. I don't think ChatGPT is going to fully cannibalize search engines because really it's a different user experience. And there's also different intent behind this. And the other thing is that like Google is so integrated into our lives that they have the fresh data that ChatGPT can't access. ChatGPT really just steals content from Google. And a lot of times in most searches, it actually sources like Google images and YouTube videos and things like that. So it's using Google data, but Google has the data that ChatGPT doesn't, such as Gmail, Maps, Android, YouTube. So this is pretty interesting when everybody, you know, there's like this massive shiny object right now that everything needs to move to AI. There's a big adoption, but it is statistically insignificant for most of us. And to go further, like people are like, oh, like, you know, ChatGPT is crushing Google. Well, they're not. Google is 800% bigger than ChatGPT. And they're not getting any smaller. They grew by almost 22% last year. So when we look at this, the same thing where I was talking about, like, this doesn't mean you don't do paid ads or social. It's just like, okay, look at the opportunity and where it's at. So it's the same thing with AI. There's obviously tons of opportunity in AI, and it's going to increase. But pay attention to your demographic, right? Nearly 50% of ChatGPT users are under the age of 25. So if your audience is under that age, that's great. And if they're not, then we're talking about almost 50% of 1% of the traffic volume. So it is nearly statistically insignificant, but probably most important is the intent. Most of us use ChatGPT to say, make an image, write a text, summarize a thing, give me cliff notes, give me action items. Only 30% of ChatGPT users use it for commercial queries. So 30% of that 50% of that less than 1%, right? Pretty fascinating, huh? Because I think a lot of us as marketers or entrepreneurs are like in this bubble and echo chamber, and we don't actually take a step to look back at the data and remove our emotions. But what if I told you you can have both? Because these are not the 3 pillars of AI, they're 3 pillars of SEO. And I'm going to give you an example. So we have the privilege of working with Russell Brunson on a lot of projects. One of them is Secrets of Success. And I caught him sharing an amazing comment here. I didn't have him mic'd up or anything, so it's a little bit hard to read on here on the audio, but I have the captions here. This is only 20 seconds long. Pay attention to what he says, and then I'm going to show you a screen after this why this matters. So what's cool about that is we do not do anything exclusively for AI for Russell. We do traditional search engine optimization. And so through that, you get the best of both worlds because now you show up on traditional search, but also AI. And so as AI increases, you're already there. And so AI is just another search engine at the end of the day. All right, so what's your action items? How do you solve this problem? The 3 pillars of AI and SEO. Depending on if you have a traditional website or a funnel, if you have a funnel, those are built for fast conversions, but AI and search engines need content depth. So if you have only a funnel, then you can model secretsofsuccess.com because that's built on just ClickFunnels, and so you can kind of see how we structured that. But if you have a traditional site and a funnel, then build out your site's content, and then you can have the call to action on your traditional site point to the funnel, so you can get the best of both worlds. After that, add value added buyer intent-based content, maximize your page speed, and then go on a publicity binge because AI is weighing this one a little bit heavier. That's what I've noticed, right? Traditional search engines kind of treat these fairly equally. But AI, we're seeing a little accelerated growth if we lean in and do media features more. You still need these as your foundation. You still need great content that it can access quickly and it trusts and can read easily with efficient, unique, value-added content. And once you get that foundation done, then go get some publicity, and that's just like throwing fuel on the fire. So there you go. There's how you show up at the top of AI and traditional search results.